Hello, Om Shanti, and a very warm welcome to you all to this Thursday's special program, A Supervision for 2022. The last few years has made us aware of climate, health, financial, and political unrest around us. Yet we may have been distracted by the drama of it all. Our inner world is still waiting for our focused attention. Can 2022 be a year for a supervision? Can it be a year where we get super clear about ourselves and our unlimited potential? This evening we'll be joined by two quite different master yogis who will be sharing their personal experience and understanding of a supervision for the self and humanity, and therefore the possibility of a better world for all of us. Now, before we hear from them, in keeping with the spirit of the topic, I feel like it's useful if we ask ourselves two questions. The first question is, what does having a supervision for 2022 mean to me? And the second question is, what does it look like and feel like? Take a few seconds to ask yourselves these questions. I feel like vision comes to fruition with patience and wisdom. I've come to understand that I can't change the world by starting with the world. Some of the largest challenges with traditional leadership and vision is that we are tasked with changing our communities, our countries, our world before we begin the most important task with ourselves. Vision shapes the future by requiring wisdom. The world we want to see tomorrow can only begin with the actions that we take today. Vision is much like values and beliefs. It begins at home, it begins in our mind. Now, what about sustaining a vision? I believe that comes with the clarity that we have with our goals that we set, and then our subsequent actions in our day-to-day lives. Making decisions that align with our core value and our inner goodness. That continues to support our vision. Now for the final question. Can we hold a supervision for humanity, despite all the upheaval that is occurring in the planet right now, in the people's hearts, minds, and with the very planet itself? To help us explore the possibility of moving forward to a higher consciousness, we will now be going to the Brahma Kumari's headquarters in Rajasthan, where Sister Manda is currently staying. Sister Manda has been able to recognize the simple spiritual truths behind the Brahma Kumari's teachings and experience the depths of those truths. She has devoted her entire life to deepening her understanding and experience of Raj Yoga meditation. For many years, and still continues to be at the forefront of regular Brahma Kumari's activities at the Global Retreat Center in Oxford. So now, without further ado, I'll hand over to Sister Manda.
Om Shanti. Om Shanti is a greeting of peace. And I know that those of you who've been connected with the Brahma Kumaris not only know about Om Shanti, but whenever you've come to us, you've definitely had a taste of what it means to experience Om Shanti, to be the essence of peace. And today we are here to talk about our vision of 2022. And for me, what better place to explore this particular topic than where I am right now. You will be surprised to see the setting that I'm in. I'm in India. I'm in Mount Abu. And this is the headquarters of the Brahma Kumaris, a place of great sanctity, a place of peace, a place of deep spirituality. If I had to choose a place that is my favorite place on this planet, I know there are most beautiful places around the world, and I've also had the opportunity to be at some of those. But this has to be my personal, special place in my life, if you like, only because it's a place that gave me a new life. It's a place that gave me a new vision of myself, a place that gave me an understanding of the potential of my own future and my own possibilities. So what a place to be with you than this place. The last couple of years have been very unusual, to say the least, for all of us. And in every situation, we find ourselves talking about what's happened. So where are we today? We still have no idea. We're not certain as to what tomorrow might bring for any of us. And yet we know that we have to take charge of our own lives. So I especially chose to be here at this time when 2021 was coming to an end and 2022 was beginning. For so many reasons. There were so many powerful experiences. I managed to catch COVID while I was in India last year. And while so many people were concerned about me and feeling that maybe I might not even survive, but I think for 2021, that's got to be the most powerful experience for me, because I found myself really in this space during that time where my mind became absolutely quiet. My heart became still in the sense that I didn't think or worry about anything. I remember having one thought, and that thought was just keep breathing, and keep breathing. And so much learning happened during that period that when we find ourselves in those uncomfortable situations, the only thing that helps us is silence. The only thing that supports us is our deepest connection with ourselves, with a spiritual source, that which is beyond what we see and what we touch and what we feel. This has been part of my experience over the last 40 years anyway. And so what would be my vision for 2022? For myself, the feeling that creating a sense of stillness, a silence, taking responsibility for my life in such a way with some other support than a support that I might have had until now. Places, people, roles, situations, circumstances, all of these things in subtle ways, even while you're on a spiritual journey, can become a support and you don't even realize. And I feel that probably that was the case for me. But 2022, I'd like to create such a support for myself with my internal resources. I'd like to be able to take complete and full support from a higher source, from a presence of the divine, a connection with the source of love, a relationship with the source of absolute purity, a being that is available to me anytime, any place, And this source is the source that provides me with all of my internal resources as well. A source that's constant, always available, always ready. And as I become conscious of this presence in my life takes care of itself, strangely enough. For the world, I feel that I too want to be available and ready to serve, to support, however and in whatever way. My inspiration for the world too is that, and seeing that over the last couple of years, people have realized how much their lives were consumed by doing. And that now, when they've had the opportunity to be quiet, when they've had the opportunity to take time and be away from the hustle and bustle of life, they've realized the need for the quietness, for silence. And my hope for my fellow brothers and sisters in the world would be that they realize that there is something more to the self than meets the eye. Because this was my experience also when I came here 40 years ago in 1981. I'd come here to explore just as a tourist the first time I came. But the second time I came with some spiritual awakening. But I still came with the question, what does it mean to experience myself as a spiritual energy? And it was here that I experienced love from people that I'd never met before. I'd experienced the understanding of giving and the understanding of belonging that I'd never experienced before, even though I had everything I could possibly have. But here were the people that I was so unfamiliar with, yet I knew I belonged to them and they belonged to me. And this was the experience of spiritual love that went beyond any sense of connections, blood connections or relationships as I know them. So I feel that for our world also, my fellow brothers and sisters in the world begin to recognize that we are all one. The source of all of us is one, that we're spiritual beings of peace, beings of love, beings of peace, and that actually we belong to no one, but we belong to everyone. This is such a powerful state to be in. Just think about it for a moment. I belong to no one, but I belong to everyone. And actually, it's in this particular awareness and consciousness that there is true freedom. Freedom to be myself, the freedom to give of myself. And I also feel that we have found ourselves getting caught up in self-preservation. Perhaps I might even refer to it as becoming selfish. For good reasons, in one sense, and yet it's only when we share, it's only when we give of ourselves that we're able to receive. And what is so special for me about being here is that it's a place we called Madhuban. Madhuban means the forest of honey. It is here that there are so many people committed to their life of spirituality, their life of chastity, their life of giving, their life of service. But actually, it's also a place that was created and then also nurtured by Brahma Baba, the founder of the Brahma Kumaris. He too, I think, would not want to take credit for all that has happened through him, because he too found himself being a channel, an instrument, if you like, without even thinking about it. In his early 50s, he found himself being drawn into silence, being drawn into a quest of spirituality. Although he was already a devout Hindu and had his own rituals and worships. But in this particular phase, he found himself being drawn into silence, wanted to be by himself and connect with the source. And it was during that period that he found himself relating spiritual truths that he hadn't even ever himself thought about by himself. And so some deep spiritual insights came through Brahma Baba. And whilst that happened in Pakistan, which is an area called Sindh, which is now part of Pakistan, in the early 50s, he moved here with a group of 200-300 people to spend time in deeper practice of meditation, in the invocation of the source, the divine. And this place actually gives us the experience of what it would be like to viscerally, if you like, feel the source of purity. What it would be like to sit in meditation, long hours, short periods, long periods. In one sense, it's irrelevant, but when we come here, we want to spend time in longer practices of meditation because we don't get the opportunity to do that when we are in our own places. So Brahma Baba, his vision for the world was that each one realizes their highest potential through recognition of themselves as this spiritual energy. And also, through that realization, reach their highest potential. And his vision was that this world would become a world of oneness, the world of truth, the world of beauty, the world of truth. Truth and beauty are synonymous with one another. And when I talk about beauty, it's not the beauty that he thought just was pleasing to the eyes, but a beauty in which there is harmony, a beauty in which there is a space, a recognition of being able to go beyond the limits, beyond what you see, and that beauty is part of you, what you're witnessing, the harmony, the joy that you witness in something that takes you in a space that allows you to see your own beauty. Generally, when we see beauty, we often see ourselves separate from that beauty. But true beauty is when there is such a harmony that there is no separation between yourself and that which you are witnessing. A world in which there is alignment with matter, with soul, with nature. He saw that world. He had a vision of that world. And he felt that this world could be created. We could create that world. And that world can only be created when we can practice going beyond the limitations that distract us and attract us, when matter actually binds us to itself, when we are those spiritual energy that gives life to matter, that gives beauty to matter, that gives character to matter. And so this place also allows us to go inside ourselves in that powerful way. So I'd like to take you on a little trip, if you like, to some of these places where I spend time. And I hope that you can catch the purity, you can catch the sanctity that exists here. It's palpable, it's tangible, and I always love to be here whenever I get the opportunity. And so I wonder, is that my attachment? Possibly it is. And it's time to be free from all those aspects that we consider that bind us to themselves. So let's go on a little trip. I'd like to take you to a memorial that's been created, which we call the Tower of Peace. It's a place where Brahma Baba was cremated, and it's a place where we too begin to realize that actually everything that comes has to go. Everything that is born, that is new, becomes old. Everything that is born has to die. And if you want something new to be born, the old has to die also. So Tower of Peace is a sacred space. And there's one other room, which is called the meditation room, where Brahma Baba's picture is there. And I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but I felt the first time I saw his photograph, I felt I knew him. I felt that he was there. And even today, he himself passed away in the late 60s. And yet we all feel his presence in a powerful way. And the reason why we feel it is because he's available. The sense that he's available, he's made himself available to us and to experience the presence of the divine, and seeing how he conducted his life in the company of God, in the company of the divine. And we find ourselves wanting to do the same as well. So it's a very short but a brief vision of end of 2022. Let's have a little meditation together. So as we go around the places, hopefully you can tap into the energy. Om Shanti. Om Shanti. as you allow yourself to witness what you see in front of you, the space of spirituality. As you see people meditating, concentrating, spending time in silence, become aware of that space inside your own self, the space of quietness, the space of depth, like the ocean. And whilst there's actions and movements, perhaps sounds that you're not used to, but allow those to fade into the distance. But sanctity is before you. Sanctity of respect for the self as this pure, unconditional energy of being, where I let go of all my perceptions of myself and recognize myself as pure spiritual energy, an energy that has no beginning and has no end. I always exist. And in this existence, there is the awareness of the eternity of the moment. This moment, a pure moment, a purest sense of myself. And it's in this pure sense of myself that I'm able to connect with the higher source, the one with whom I have an eternal connection. A connection of love, of unconditional love. I find myself in the vastness of this unconditional love, the depth of peace. As I look through the eyes, as I look through my eyes, I can see the light of peace and the light of spirituality manifesting around me. And I bring that spirituality to all that I see, all that I feel, and all that I touch. Even though I may reflect outside, but I find myself going deeper inside. Stillness and peace become my friend. They become my companion. They become a cave that I reside in. Om Shanti.
Thank you, Sister Manda, for your insightful thoughts and taking us on this journey that has transported us to the beautiful place called Madhuban. A few things that you mentioned that really stood out for me is people being in uncomfortable situations. I feel like we've all been in an uncomfortable situation in our lives. We might be in one right now, and there's a tornado of thoughts going on, and all we want to do is escape and find a way out of that. You mentioned that for yourself, it's been silence and your deepest connection with yourself and the Supreme has been your biggest support in and out of those situations. I found that when I'm in an uncomfortable situation, my decisions don't come with clarity. Rather, they come with the notion of escaping the discomfort that I'm in right now. However, you told us that having the ability to go into silence and connect with myself and a higher power, I'm able to remove the fog created by discomfort and allow myself to see more clearly and therefore act more accurately. Thank you for sharing your vision of having full and complete support from your internal resources and your connection to the Supreme. I feel like we have so many different support systems in our lives, but to have a support system that is constant, that is always there, that is consistently there, I feel like we couldn't ask for anything better. And this links really well with your vision for the world. I feel like you're able to share the treasures that you have gained with the connection with yourself and the Supreme Spirit above. And as they say, you can't pour from an empty pitcher. So we do need to fill ourselves with these treasures in order for us to be able to share those with the world. I feel like you've raised another super point. We belong to no one, but we belong to everyone. I feel like at this moment we are all belonging to something that we believe in, that we resonate with. And what this does is it transgresses into all sorts of boundaries and limitations for us. And for example, I may attach myself to a certain belief. And what I'm doing there is I'm unattaching myself to all those who do not have that belief. And this then creates division. But you've explained that by understanding that we can go beyond these boundaries and limitations, that we can belong to everyone, yet not belong to anyone. For me, that's like I can be part of everyone's story, but not make their story mine. Now, let's return to London to hear from another master yogi, Sister Jayanti. Sister Jayanti is the additional administrative head of the Brahma Kumaris. Sister Jayanti has spent her entire adult life in spiritual service. She also represents the Brahma Kumaris at the United Nations and speaks widely on spiritual solutions to some of the dilemmas that humanity and indeed our planet face today. She is a soul who has studied, practiced, taught, encouraged, and mentored thousands, and continues to do so, now reaching global audiences via Zoom. So, over to you, Sister Jayanti.
Om Shanti, a greeting of peace to my sisters and my brothers. It was beautiful to see the images of Madhuban in Mount Abu. And yes, I agree, it's my favorite place also. But now I'm sitting far away. But the memories of that place are still very, very vivid. And not just the memories, of course, but when memories emerge, then those feelings emerge also. And so a place that is a very, very special place and holds a sacred place in the hearts of all those who've ever been there. And I'm thinking that when I first went to Mount Abu, it was 1966 August, it was the monsoon season, and things were very basic, very, very simple. But of course, the charismatic personality of Brahma Baba was very much there. Baba was with us in the physical form. And so you didn't notice the simplicity or anything else. You just loved the presence of this amazing individual, this personality who had undergone a huge transformation in his own life, but had also by then inspired transformation in many, many thousands of others. But there was a small community that actually was there in Mount Abu at that time, residents who were looking after the place and who were permanently there. And that was just a very small number, a group of about 30. But Baba had started an experiment way back in 1936, when he first had visions of God as a being of light, another vision in which he saw a beautiful world, a world of love, of truth, of justice, with everything in its most perfect, pure state. And he understood that such a world was about to come, but he also had to play a role within the creation of that. And a small group, well, about 400 at that time, relatively small in today's numbers. So a group of about 400 people gathered around him in firstly Hyderabad, which is in Sindh, Pakistan today. At that time, it was a combined India. And then a year later, he moved to Karachi, and they lived in different homes, but what they were doing was experimenting. They were experimenting into the possibility of creating a better world through their own inner transformation. And this experiment lasted for about 14 years. 13 years firstly in Karachi, and that spanned the period of the Second World War, the Partition War. And then in 1950, in May, the whole family, and by then it was around 350. So 350 of them moved from Karachi to India, and from the harbour in Gujarat where they landed, they came by train to Abu Road and then up the mountain to Mount Abu, which is where we saw the filming earlier. And in Mount Abu, in this place that you've just had a glimpse of, Pandav Bhavan, the experiment continued for another year or so. And in that experiment, what this group was doing under the guidance of Brahma Baba, they were holding that vision of a better world for all, but also a vision of a better self. And the way that they experimented with this was firstly through meditation. They were going deep into silence, and in that silence, they were accessing that part of the self that had been forgotten. And what that means is, just as you and I in today's world, we get very caught up with the identity of the external form, and everything revolves around that. This body, the gender, the color, the race, the religion, the relatives, the possessions, the position. Everything revolves around all of these things, which, of course, are important. But because the attention has been focused so much on that external part of the identity, we've lost contact with the inner spiritual being. And this was their experiment. Were they able to connect with that inner being and connect with the innate qualities present within that being, and not just in silence and meditation to be able to connect with those, but having connected with them, then to be able to emerge them and then actually express them in their day-to-day behavior. Out of the 350, I reckon I knew maybe around 300 of them, my amazing fortune. But out of those, I maybe interacted very, very closely with about 20 of them. And out of those, again, my incredible fortune, I actually lived with one of them for about 40 years when she was here in London. And so the things that she had learned from Brahma Baba were very much present in her life. I'm talking about Dadi Janki. And then seeing the things in her life, many, many, many took inspiration. And not just in London, but all across the world. She traveled intensely. And what she was doing was giving people that feeling, that presence of what Brahma Baba had done for her. And the process continues because each one who has understood this mechanism is able to apply it in their own life. And yes, of course, actually seeing it manifest in Brahma Baba was amazing. And to feel that presence was very, very powerful. But in fact, the formula is something that can be translated into every single culture and every single place by any individual. There's one particular foundational belief that we begin with. And it's a challenge to some people because there are three different views about the state of the human being. One view says that we begin evil and gradually we become civilized, and then there's something good that we learn to develop in our life so that then human relationships can be cordial and there can be an exchange of happiness. There's another perspective that says human beings start with a combination, a mixture of a bit of good, a bit of evil, and at different times along the journey of life, different aspects emerge. But what we understand in the philosophy of Raj Yoga that has been taught by Prajapita Brahma is that the soul innately is good. There is nothing but goodness in the soul. And this is manifest when we first begin our journey. And as we continue our journey, then we forget about that goodness when our consciousness becomes trapped through materialism and consumerism, and our identity then gets linked with the physical form. We lose touch with that goodness that is there within us. And this then explains the condition of the world at the present time, a period of great darkness in which it seems as if it's not just post-truth, but it's an era in which falsehood reigns supreme. I don't want to give you examples of this, but there's enough news and information out there for you to recognize what I'm talking about. At such a time, there is darkness, and people stumble, people fall in darkness, people lose their way, and there's a huge amount of fear and insecurity. Does it describe the conditions of the world at the present time? I think it does. But beyond that darkness, there's another phase. A phase in which the darkness goes, the sun appears, the dawn has broken, we see the light of the sun, and then the day actually begins. So my understanding is that, and my vision that Brahma Baba shared and that I hold very close to my heart, is that this is that period of transition, a period in which we are moving from all the darkness and all that the darkness has brought about into that era of light. And it's interesting for me to see that it's not just Brahma Kumaris who are talking about this new era ahead. There seem to be many little groups, clusters of people across the world, big or small, whatever. But many, many people around the world seem to be playing with this idea that there is something that's very beautiful that's ahead of us. But what Brahma Baba did was to tell us, not only is it there waiting for us, we actually have to make it happen. In the sense that, think about it, if you've got a beautiful garden and you put in wild animals into the garden, well, they don't recognize the value of the garden. And so they're going to be picking out, scratching the ground and pulling out not just weeds, but also the flowers. And in a very short space of time, there'll be havoc in that garden. But if you have animals that are trained and they recognize the value of the flowers, they're going to live in that garden, a very beautiful place, very beautifully, very peacefully. And human beings are a little the same. That what we did from a place that was a beautiful place was polluted, and we've turned it into, in some places, a desert. In some places, there's been other natural disasters. And today, nature that was pure and clean and uplifts us all even today, but it's no longer clean. It's become totally, totally polluted and degraded because of human intervention. But trying to start with the world outside and change things out there doesn't seem to work. And the reason for this is that everything starts inside. And if we begin inside, then the repercussions of that inner transformation can be seen in terms of human relationships, in terms of our relationship with nature, with all other creatures of this planet. And so that was Baba's experiment. First step, practice meditation, go deep into yourself and explore what there is within. There'll be lots of thoughts, there'll be lots of other things, but keep going deeper and even deeper. And there'll come a point when you'll begin to feel Om Shanti. I am peace, that my natural state of being is peace. But it also opens the door to the other treasures. Within myself, I carry love and truth and joy and purity. And through experiencing peace, I'm able to discover all of these treasures. And all I have to do is to keep remembering that this is who I am. Om, I am the inner being, the soul, resident here in the center of the forehead, not on the skin, just behind. And in that awareness of who I am, then I'm able to share those qualities. Now, out of 24 hours during the day, how long am I able to maintain that vision of myself and that vision of others? It's a challenge because it slips away so quickly, and my vision focuses, instead of here, it focuses here again. And then I'm seeing color and race and religion and all the things that have caused so much division within the world. And so the experiment is to just stay focused here, in touch with my own innate goodness, and to see each one with that same vision of seeing that same goodness and truth and beauty of every single individual. For us, it's an experiment. For Brahma Baba, it was a reality. Baba did not see anything else except the soul. When I was in Abu in 1966, at that time I was just 17, and I was in my skirt and blouse and short hair. And Baba looked at me and said, "You'll be a spiritual teacher." I had no idea. I was speaking in Hindi, and I had no idea what the word spiritual was in Hindi. I'd never come across it. I knew very little Hindi. And I didn't even recognize the word for teacher, so I thought Baba was just saying something flattering about me, as a grandfather would to a grandchild. That was it. But in fact, what Baba was doing was seeing the potential of the soul. And it took me a few years to be able to understand that. And then, of course, once I did recognize it, that vision emerged. Baba's vision for me became my vision for myself, not just in the sense of teacher, but in the sense of actually being able to live a life based on those qualities. And my journey started a few years after that, but thankfully, before Brahma Baba passed away. So I was able to meet with him and say, this is what I now understand, and this is what I now want to do. So it was a very beautiful exchange in that meeting. And Baba's practice of seeing the soul and being the soul was so powerful that with a glance, Baba would be able to carry the individual away from their narrow identity into the unlimited identity of the soul, and even give them an experience of God, which is what happened for me. And I'm eternally grateful that I had that amazing fortune. But today, I know that this is the formula to use to connect with the goodness, and then to be able to express it, and to know absolutely that others also have that same goodness, but yes, it needs to be nurtured and encouraged, and it will then become a reality. And what I understand is that even if it's a minority that's able to have this vision for the self and for others and the world, the power of that is such that we hit critical mass and there'll be a transformation. And the majority will begin to understand these things, and definitely the vision that Baba had of a better world can actually happen. So my vision for 2022 is that we've been through a pandemic and we don't know how long it's going to last. But I think with a spiritual awareness, we know that whatever are the external situations, we can maintain our own inner consciousness and have that paradigm shift for the self. Paradigm shift doesn't happen for everyone all at once. It happens slowly. But once the minority, a powerful minority, have been through that, they become powerful and they're able to make a shift for the world, so that the consciousness of the world changes. And instead of a materialistic consciousness, there's now a spiritual consciousness. And in that spirituality, definitely what flourishes is a world of truth and love and justice and all the things that we long for and we seek today. I don't know that that'll all happen in 2022, but what I can say is that definitely once the process has begun, even in a few, that process reaches out and touches many others. And so I've seen that over the last 2 years, more and more people are interested in transformation. More and more people are aware of the power of silence and going deep within. And I think that the snowball has started to roll and it's gathering force, it's gathering momentum. And I think that we're going to see more of that in 2022. In terms of the paradigm shift that is so much needed from materialism to spirituality and the real identity of the self, it's so easy to see how something so simple can actually turn things around. Because the most important thing to deal with, I think, is the whole subject of identity and the insecurity that I carry because of this false notion that I am this physical being. Because all the things that I depend on are all perishable and very, very short-lived. Some things can stay for a stretch of time, some things for a very short time. Possessions, well, you don't know how long they're going to last. When it's relationships, again, in today's world, there's no guarantee how long any of those are going to last. And so all the things that I know and see and trust, all of them can end very, very fast. My own health. Today, I'm young, I'm strong, and I think I'll always be like that. And I see the process of aging in others, and then I see it in myself as time goes on. But somehow I think that I'll always be the same, and I'll be able to do everything that I can do today. But there are so many variables and uncertainties that come in all of this, that really deep down within us we carry insecurity and fear. And this, of course, then also breeds the competition and the challenges that come in relationships, whether it's for an individual with another individual or whether it's for groups of people. The simple remedy, I return to soul consciousness, the awareness of the inner being, the spiritual being that I am. And in that state of soul consciousness, all the outside things are left behind, and I develop a relationship with the divine. And I begin to realize, as I continue to deepen that relationship, that all that I need, all that I want, everything can come from one. And in that awareness of that relationship with the one who is the source, the one who has all attributes, the one who I can have any connection, any relationship with. The divine can be my mother, giving me unconditional love. The divine is my father, giving me an inheritance, a property, and the property that God has is a property of happiness. I can make God my teacher and learn and study spiritual truth and begin to understand what is true as distinct from false. And through that journey of understanding spiritual truth, come to the point where it's not just information or knowledge, but I'm actually now practicing those ideas, and it becomes wisdom, and it leads me to the destination of truth. I can also ensure that I make God my friend, so that there's somebody I'm communicating with at all times. But instead of lifting a mobile phone and calling this one, that one, and the other one, and the other one, and who knows at what time I won't be able to do that. In any emergency, the first thing that goes are the networks, and I won't be able to call on anyone. But I develop that relationship with one, in which that one is available at all times. And so connecting with the one, I get the guidance, the answers, and the understanding, and the sense making of whatever is going on. Because sometimes it's not even emergency. It's just a situation that's confusing. I can't make sense of it. Go inside, connect, and things become clear. I begin to see things below the surface, things deeper, and I say, okay, that makes sense. I understand the meaning behind all of this. And also my guide, the Sat Guru, the true Guru, who can show me the path to liberation, to freedom, here in this life. I'm not talking about next birth or many births, but right here and now. The insecurities and the fears that I had before dissolve. And it's not a question of competing with anyone else, but what Brahma Baba did and showed us in practical life, and what the connection with the divine allows, is for me to see my own highest potential. The supervision is that vision of me and what it is I can do for myself. Not for the world, that's another story. But am I able to take all the gifts that God wants to give me and transform myself so that the negativity and the waste and whatever it is that's mundane is left behind, and that which is noble, pure, and most elevated, I'm able to achieve. So the vision for the self, to be able to take a step forward in that direction. Not just maybe one step, but many steps. And whatever has happened in the past, there's sense to it, there's meaning to it. And what I can do is learn from all of those things. And having learned from all of that, what I now do is to say, okay, lessons learned. Now let me move forward. Vision for others, also holding that vision of goodness for everyone, so that I understand no human being is perfect. So I see whatever is going on, but that's not the focus of my attention. The focus of my attention is their goodness. And maybe by doing that, there can be that inspiration shared, that vibration given that can help support another on their journey to move forward also. And the vision for the world. A world in which not only is there love and harmony amongst all people, but also between humans and the animals, so that we restore that balance with the world out there. At the moment, we've had this attitude of conquest, of taking everything, of exploiting everything. And in that state of goodness, there's no violence at all, non-violence. And in that state, no harm to any creature or even the elements of nature, but being able to treat nature with that sense of nature in its pure state, which is sacred. And so the paradigm shift within myself can be a contribution to all of this in the world out there. I know that as we change, the world changes, and so even if this total transformation isn't achieved either for myself or for the world in 2022, no problem. I know that we'll have moved a huge amount further in that direction. And so what lies ahead? Let 2022 be one in which you are able to take one step, 100 steps to that goal of the highest you, your highest vision of yourself. And also let us carry the world in that direction too, so that 2022 isn't just another year, but it becomes a turning point for the year to move into that space in which truly things can be better for all. Have a wonderful and magical year, but also let us spend a few minutes on silence in which we experiment with this idea of going within and allowing the divine to move us forward to that highest state of being. Om Shanti. Reflecting on the things that I've been hearing about, I decide I'll experiment and go deeper and deeper within the self. And I come to that space where my thoughts are now much slower. And I begin to sense peace within. And in this awareness of peace, I feel the presence of the divine. The being of light, the source of truth, love, beauty, goodness. And in the presence of the source, those waves from the ocean of peace reach the soul. And I truly discover peace within. And I'm also surrounded by the peace from the divine. Becoming peaceful, I go even deeper, and in the presence of the being who is the source of love, I feel the love within. The love that's reaching me from the divine. Stimulates the love that I'd forgotten about within myself. And this love emerges. The power of the love of the divine heals the soul. cleanses the soul. And fills the soul with power. Peace, love, and joy are my birthright. They belong to me. And in the presence of the divine, I know that this is who I truly am. The being of love, the being of truth, filled with joy, purity, and peace. And these vibrations reach out into the world and everything and everyone on this planet. Om Shanti.
Thank you, Sister Jayanti, for your amazing insights and lovely meditation. Holding a vision for a better world, a vision for a better self, is truly something that we need this year. And to start this, we must take the journey, as you said, deep within ourselves, to explore the possibilities that inner silence has to offer. And then we're able to connect to the divine, to uncover the qualities that are innate to us. This is what the practice of Raj Yoga meditation does. You mentioned that Brahma Baba, being so conscious and seeing the soul in others, was able to carry the individual from a narrow sense of identity of gender, class, race, position, etc., to an unlimited spiritual identity. My feeling is that as we explore the natural goodness within us, it creates the bridge to be able to see the goodness in everyone around us. And then we are able to express this goodness wherever we go. With this consciousness of my true self and my inner goodness, I am able to deepen my connection with the divine. And as Sister Jayanti mentioned, that all I need, all I want, everything can come from the One. And when we're faced with insecurities and uncertainties in our life, we are able to maintain an inner consciousness of stability and dignity with the steady spiritual connection. So now, I encourage you all to explore your supervision for yourselves, for your loved ones, and for our planet. Thank you for watching, and do tune in next week for another talk on Thursday at 7 p.m. Talk is called Maintaining Momentum. After a vision, we need to create momentum, so do join us then. Om Shanti and good night.